to the channel, and this is our part 2 of our Digging Up the Past on Nobles. And let's go on ahead and get started with Muxus Goblin Grandy for 4 and 2 red. It's a 4/4 Goblin Noble. And whenever he enters the battlefield, reveal the top 6 cards of your library. Put all Goblin creatures with converted mana cost 5 or less up from among them onto the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. When Muxus attacks, it gets +1/+1 for each other goblin you control, which is actually pretty cool. If you wanted to put this at the head of a goblin deck, you could consistently get it all the time, but you'd have to have a lot of mana to make sure you consistently got him out. Singir the Dark Baron, he's back again, but with a different spin on it. For 4 and 2 black, he's a 4/4 with flying, legendary creature vampire noble. Whenever another creature dies, put 2 +1/+1 counters on him. Whenever another player loses the game, you gain life equal to that player's life total as the turn began. And this doesn't have to be if, you don't have to be the one to knock him out. It's just if another player loses the game, you gain that life. Lateral Blade of the Elves for 2 and a black and a green. It's 2/3 legendary creature elf noble with menace. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens. Then you can tap 10, tap her, tap 10 untap elves you control. Each opponent loses 10 and you gain 10. This would be awesome in a Voltron deck. Building it as Voltron elves. This would be pretty funny. Squirrel Sovereign. Yep, they're squirrels. They're squirrel nobles. For 1 and a green, it's a 2/2. And other squirrels you control get +1/+1. Arrogant Outlaw, 2 and a black. It's a 3/2. Whenever it enters the battlefield, if your opponent lost life this turn, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. It's actually pretty kind of taxing if you're playing a life lost, life drain deck. Blood Tithe Collector, 4 and a black. It's 3/4 with flying. Whenever it enters the battlefield and an opponent lost life this turn, each opponent discards a card. Vampire Socialite. That's a different kind of... This is the first time we've seen Socialite. For a black and a red, it's a 2/2 with menace. And whenever it enters the battlefield, if an opponent lost life this turn, put a counter on each other vampire you control, so not her. As long as an opponent lost life this turn, each other vampire you control enters the battlefield with an additional counter. So this would actually be good in a ping deck. Somebody call, what was that one? Obnixilis Captive Kingpin. This is a deck for that one. Florian Valdarian Scion for 1 a black and a red. It's a 3/3 with first strike. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the total amount of life your opponent's lost this turn. Exile one of those cards, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. You may play the exile card this turn. Tomb Tyrant for 3 and a black. It's a zombie noble. It's with 3/3. Other zombies you control get +1/+1. For 2 a black, you can tap him, sacrifice a creature, return a zombie card at random from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only during your turn, and if there are at least 3 zombie creature cards in your graveyard. Now, I see a lot of people run this in zombie decks. I don't like the vibe of just randomly getting something out of your... I mean, anything is better than nothing. But still, you can get the same creature back. Because if you read the ability... For 2 and a black, you can tap him and sacrifice a creature. That is an activated ability. You can, at that point... But you already have to have 3 in your graveyard. If you buried alive your best 3 zombies, you get one of them. Yeah, that is true. But you still have that one that's in the graveyard that you sacrifice to his ability. And you can get that one back. Unless it's a token, which is actually a pretty smart move. So if you're going to build around, if you're going to put Tomb Tyrant, make sure you put good zombies in first. And make sure those are the only ones you want to get. Leonore Autumn Sovereign, 2 a white and a green. I don't know why they flipped them, but white and a green. It's a 0/4 with Coven. At the beginning of your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on up to one target creature you control. Then if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, draw a card. Timothar, Baron of Bats. For 4 and 2 black, it's a 4/4 Vampire Noble with a ward cost of discard a card. It's actually pretty unique. Whenever another non-token vampire you control dies, you may pay 1 and a black and exile it. If you do, create a 1/1 back creature token with flying. It gains when this creature deals combat damage to a player, sacrifice it, and return the exiled card to the battlefield tapped. It's actually pretty good if you want to build mono black vampires. Scion of Opulence for 2 and a red. It's a 3/1 Vampire Noble. Whenever it or another non-token vampire you control dies, create a treasure. It's pretty neat, but yeah, that fits. For a red, you can sacrifice 2 artifacts, exile the top card of your library, and you may play that card this turn. Strephon, Moral Progenitor. I think that's how it is. It's said. For 2, a black and a red, it's a 3/2 Vampire Noble with flying. At the beginning of your end step, create a blood token for each player who lost life this turn. This would also go good in that Obnix List Captive Kingpin deck. Whenever Strephon attacks, you may sacrifice 2 blood tokens. If you do, you may put a vampire card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains indestructible until end of turn. Edgar Charmed Groom for 2, a white and a black. It's a 4/4 legendary creature vampire noble, and all other vampires you control will get +1/+1. When it dies, return to the battlefield transformed under its owner's control into the Edgar Markov's Coffin. It's a legendary artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, you create a 1/1 white and black vampire creature token with lifelink and put a bloodline counter on Markov's Coffin. Then if there are 3 or more bloodline counters on it, remove those counters and transform it. Olivia, Crimson Bride. For 4, a black and a red as a 3/4 with flying and haste. Whenever she attacks, return her creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains when you don't control legendary vampire. Exile this creature. And this is where we go to Kamigawa and we see the flip creatures, the creatures that flip from the sagas. The first one is on the back of the Fall of Lord Konda for 2 and a white. It's a saga. 1 is exile target creature an opponent controls with mana value 4 or greater. 2 is each player gains control of all permanents they own. And 3 is exile this saga, return it, flip it into Fragment of Konda. It's a 1/3 human noble enchantment creature with defender. Whenever it dies, you can draw a card. Michiko's Reign of Truth for 1 and a white. For 1 and 2, target creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each artifact and or enchantment you control. And 3, you flip it into Portrait of Michiko. And it is a 0/0, but it gets +1/+1 for each artifact and enchantment you control. Lord Xander the Collector for 4, a blue, a black, and a red. I'm sorry about the art on this one. This one's like really faded, but when I brought it up, that's the only one that came up half decent. It's a 6/6. Let me get ready to read this one. Legendary creature vampire demon noble. That is a mouthful. And he has some just stacked abilities. Whenever he enters the battlefield, target opponent discards half the cards in their hand, rounded down. Whenever he attacks, defending player mills half their library, rounded down. And whenever he dies, target opponent sacrifices half the non-land permanents they control, rounded down. This one just is nasty as a commander or whatever you're going to do with it. Patron of the Arts for 2 and a red. It's a 3/1. Whenever it enters the battlefield or dies, create a treasure token. Raphael, Fiendish Savior for 3, a black and a red. It's a 4/4 Devil Noble with flying. Other demons, devils, imps, and tieflings you control get +1/+1 and have lifelink. He was near the end of our last video of digging up the past with tieflings. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature your card was put into your graveyard from anywhere this turn, create a 1/1 red devil creature token with When this creature dies, it deals 1 damage to any target. The Council of Four. For 3, a white and a blue. It is a 0/8 legendary creature human noble. Whenever a player draws their second card during their turn, you draw a card. Pretty neat. Whenever a player casts their second spell during your turn, you may create a 2/2 white knight creature token. Duke Ulder of Ravengard. For 4, a red and a white. It is a 5/5 legendary creature human noble soldier. At the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and myriad until end of turn, which is actually really good, as long as it's not a legendary creature. Emperor Mihail II, I think that's how it said, Mihail. For 1 and 2 blue, it's a 3/3 Merfolk Noble. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast Merfolk spells from the top of your library. And whenever you cast a Merfolk spell, you may pay 1. If you do, create a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token. Squee, the Dubious Monarch. For 2 and a red, it's a 2/2 legendary creature Goblin Noble with haste. And whenever it attacks, you create a 1/1 Goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. You may cast Squee from your graveyard by paying 3 and a red and exiling 4 of the cards from your graveyard rather than paying its mana cost. That is just, what is it called, from the Theros set. It escapes me now. What is the name of it? It's the mechanic. It's going to kill me because I can't think of it. I'll have to come back to it. Queen Elena of Rudak. I don't know how some of these are said. I can't help it. For a green and 2 white, it is a star and legendary creature elf noble. And her power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control. So it's kind of like a Sisay. If 1 or more creature tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a 1/1 white soldier creature token are created instead. And here we have the 40k. If you didn't know, they had some nobles in the 40k decks. Scorpek Lord. I actually have this deck and I played this one and I have so much trouble saying some of these 40k names. For 2 and a black, it's a 3/2 artifact creature Necron Noble with menace, and it has the 2 abilities: command protocols. Other artifact creatures you control get +1/+0 and have menace, and unearth for 2 and a black. Necron Overlord for 2 and 2 black. It is a 2/5 with Relentless March. For X, you can tap it, put X, tap it, tap X, untapped artifacts you control. Target opponent loses X life. I was almost going to win a game with this, and I haven't changed the precon at all. I was actually going to win a game with this card if I was allowed to stay alive, but I was not. They killed me on the next turn, right before I could get it off. Bellicor, the Dark Master, for 3, a blue, a black, and a red, is a 6/5 with flying. And whenever it enters the battlefield, you draw X cards and you lose X life, where X is the number of demons you control. And it also has the ability Lord of Torment. Whenever another demon enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. So that's basically the that one card. It's not Pandemonium, because Pandemonium triggers on everyone. What is it called? It's a bunch of cards that have like effects like this that they put on creatures. It's really cool though. Queen Kayla Bing Krug for 1, a red and a white. I don't know what their deal was with swapping the colors. Like, I don't know. It's pretty weird to me. It's a 2/3, but for 4 mana, you can tap it and discard all the cards in your hand, then draw that many cards. You may choose an artifact or creature card. This is the one that got me. I didn't know that you could get the creature cards back, but it's actually pretty good. It's a pretty good deck. You have a really high chance of trying to almost milling yourself out with this deck, though. With mana value 1, you discard it this way, then do the same for 2 and 3. Return those cards to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. Kibo Uktabi Prince. This has made a lot of waves whenever it first started. For 2 and a green, it's a 2/2 legendary creature, Noble Monkey Noble. Tap it, each player creates a colorless artifact token named Banana. With tap, sacrifice this artifact, add green or red, you gain 2 life. Whenever an artifact an opponent controls is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control that's an ape or a monkey. Whenever he attacks, defending player sacrifices an artifact. So, for a good while, this was the bane of everyone's existence at Brian Canada Shop. And if you don't know Brian Canada, he is Cure for the Common Game here on YouTube. But everybody was just, especially not too long after, this was right after Brothers War, and he played this deck, and everybody just let out so many groans whenever this hit the table. I actually won my, I beat Brian dice because I was playing Xenagos Artifacts, Xenagos God of Rebels Artifacts, and I could not play my hand if I didn't get him off the table. And here we go into March of the Machines. Yeah, March of the Machines. With Ayara, Widow of the Realm. For 1 and 2 black. She's a 3/3, and you can tap, sacrifice another creature or artifact, and it deals X damage to target opponent or battle, and you gain X life, where X is sacrificed permanent's mana value. And you can transform her for 5 and a red as sorcery speed into Ayara, the Furnace Queen. Yeah, that's some beautiful artwork. She is a 4/4, and at the beginning of combat on your turn, return up to 1 target artifact or creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste, exile at the beginning of the next end step. So all the creatures you sacrificed, you can bring them all back. And then we have to visit a siege first with Invasion of Fiora. And I'm not going to read this one, it's sideways. To get to Marchesa, Resolute Monarch. She's a 3/6 with Menace and Death Touch, and whenever she attacks, remove all counters from up to 1 target permanent at the beginning of your upkeep. If you haven't dealt combat damage since your last turn, you draw a card and you lose life. So it's kind of like as long as you get to flip her and you make it, keep her on the battlefield, you can keep drawing cards. Markov Baron. This one's actually pretty good. For 2, and this one is from the Aftermath, I believe. For 2 and a black, it's a 2/2, and with Convoke, which I don't know why it would need Convoke, but it has lifelink and other vampires you control get +1/+1, and it has Madness. This is actually pretty good. And our last one is Kiora, Sovereign of the Deep. For 3, a green and a blue, it's a 4/5 Merfolk Noble with Vigilance and Ward 3. Whenever you cast a Kraken, Leviathan, Octopus, or Servant spell from your hand, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is that spell's mana value. You may cast a spell with mana value less than X from among them without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this would actually be the new Kraken, Leviathan, sea creature deck, which actually wouldn't be that bad. But that is going to be it for today, guys. I know it kind of got a little lengthy. I wanted to try and break it up so it wouldn't be as bad. But that's going to be it. I want to thank all the subscribers, everybody that comments, likes, and shares the videos. But that is going to be it for today, guys. And I'll see you guys next time with part 3, Nobles Digging Up the Past. I'll see you guys next time in the graveyard.